You say you accept the judge's findings?
I accept the judge made findings, yes.
That wasn't my question. Do you accept that you behaved in the way the judge found?
Not all of it. I still think some of it was taken out of context.
So you want the court to trust that your behaviour has changed, while you're still saying most of it didn't happen?
I'm saying I understand more now than I did then.
Dad wanted a pathway back to ordinary contact with his 5-year-old daughter. Mum accepted professionally supervised contact, but she said anything beyond that could put her back in danger. The court had already found some of Dad's behaviour abusive, so had he changed? Or had he simply learned better answers? This episode includes discussion of coercive and controlling behaviour, intimidation and domestic abuse within a fictionalised family court scenario. No physical violence is described, but some viewers may find the subject matter upsetting. Please take care while watching. A mother says she's frightened of her former partner. There are no criminal convictions. When the case begins, no court has made any findings against him. Dad denies the allegations and says Mum is using them to remove him from their daughter's life. Their daughter misses him, but she also becomes anxious when Dad asks questions about Mum. Should contact continue while the allegations are investigated? And if some of those allegations are proved, does that mean that contact must stop altogether? I'm Neil Andrews, a Mackenzie friend, and this isn't legal advice. This is a fictionalised scenario from the family courts of England and Wales, and you're watching Family Court, You Be the Judge. Mum and Dad had a 5-year-old daughter called Lily. After separation, Lily initially saw Dad most weekends. She loved his house, his dog, and the dinosaur-shaped pancakes he made for breakfast. Mum's pancakes were round. Dad had apparently understood that presentation matters. Several months later, Mum stopped contact. She said the pressure around every handover and conversation had become unbearable. So Dad applied to the court. He said he'd never assaulted Mum. He'd never harmed Lily. He had no criminal convictions. And at that point, no court had made any findings against him. As far as Dad was concerned, Mum had taken the arguments from an unhappy relationship and repackaged them as domestic abuse. Mum's account. Mum said Dad had monitored her throughout the relationship. He expected to know where she was, who she was with, and why she hadn't replied immediately. He checked her phone, he questioned ordinary spending, and during arguments he followed her from room to room when she tried to end the conversation. On one occasion, she said he stood in a doorway and refused to let her leave the discussion. Mum didn't say he hit her. She said he didn't need to. After separation, the messages continued, sometimes dozens in one evening. When Mum stopped answering, Dad began involving Lily. Tell Mummy she needs to reply. Ask Mummy who came to the house. Did Mummy go out last night? Mum said Lily had started worrying about giving Dad the wrong answer. She also alleged that Dad had once threatened to take Lily away permanently. Mum said she wasn't trying to erase Dad, but she was frightened that contact would give him another route into her private life. Dad's account. Dad denied being controlling. He said the relationship had been unhappy. Communication after separation had been dreadful. But according to him, that went both ways. He said he sent repeated messages because Mum ignored questions about Lily. He accepted that both parents had checked one another's locations during the relationship. He accepted that he'd stood near the doorway during an argument, but he denied stopping Mum from leaving. He completely denied threatening to take Lily away permanently. And he described the messages through Lily as clumsy attempts to communicate rather than control. Dad's central point was simple. Lily loved him. Lily missed him. And allegations shouldn't become facts merely because someone says them confidently. Your first decision. At this stage, nothing has been proved. What should happen while the court investigates? Option A, stop all contact until the allegations are decided. Option B, allow professionally supervised contact while the case continues. Option C, restore ordinary contact because there are no findings against Dad. Or option D, indirect contact only through cards, letters and short recorded video messages while the allegations are investigated. Put your first answer in the comments now, A, B, C or D. And remember, don't quietly change it later and pretend you were right all along. Before the first hearing, Cafcass carried out safeguarding checks and spoke separately with both parents. Its safeguarding letter said the disputed allegations could affect Lily's welfare. At the first hearing, formerly called an FHDRA, First Hearing Dispute Resolution Appointment, or FHDRA, the judge didn't decide who was telling the truth. The judge instead asked a much more focused question. If some of Mum's allegations were proven, could they affect whether contact was safe and how that contact should happen? Clearly, yes. So the court ordered a fact-finding hearing. This wouldn't decide Lily's final arrangements. The immediate purpose was to decide which allegations were more likely than not to have happened. While the court worked that out, Dad's direct contact stopped. He could send cards, letters and short recorded video messages, but no questions about Mum, and no messages for Lily to carry back. The court had chosen option D. Give yourself a point if you got that one right. The fact-finding hearing, both parents gave evidence. The judge considered their accounts, the pattern of messages, the available records, and the context in which the behaviour had occurred. Then the judge delivered the findings. I don't find it proved that the father threatened to remove Lily permanently from the mother's care. I don't find that he assaulted the mother and no physical violence has been established. However, I do find that he repeatedly monitored the mother, overwhelmed her with messages and expected explanations for her movements and spending. During one argument, he deliberately positioned himself in the doorway and refused to allow the mother to end the conversation. Following separation, he involved Lily in adult communication and used her to obtain information about the mother. Taken together, this amounted to controlling and intimidating behaviour. The mother's fear is genuine. Mum hadn't proved everything. The alleged threat to take Lily away wasn't proved. No physical assault was proved. But Dad hadn't been cleared. The judge found a pattern of controlling and intimidating behaviour. The court also found that Lily had been pulled into the adult conflict. A child doesn't have to be physically attacked to be affected by domestic abuse. Lily had been made to carry messages. She'd been questioned about Mum. And she'd started worrying about saying the wrong thing. So the question changed. The court no longer needed to decide whether Dad's behaviour happened. That had now been determined. The question became, what did those findings mean for Lily? Could she safely have a relationship with Dad without contact becoming another way of reaching or controlling Mum? Cafcass carried out a fuller welfare assessment. Lily clearly loved Dad. She talked warmly about his house and his dog, and naturally the dinosaur pancakes. She repeatedly asked when she would see him again, but when the question moved towards Dad's questions about Mum, Lily became quieter. She said she didn't like having to remember messages. She worried that Dad might be upset if she didn't know the answer. That was the problem in miniature. Lily missed Dad, but she'd also been placed in the middle. Cafcass had concluded that Dad had met Lily's practical needs during contact. There had been warmth between them. Their relationship could still be important, but contact couldn't simply restart as though the findings had never happened. Cafcass recommended professionally supervised contact. Dad should also be assessed for suitable domestic abuse awareness or intervention work. If contact remained safe, Dad respected every boundary and his insight improved, there could eventually be a pathway towards supported and then unsupervised contact, but that pathway was not going to be automatic. Mum accepted supervised contact. She opposed any built-in progress. Dad wanted ordinary daytime contact restored. They couldn't agree, so the case reached a final hearing. Dad's cross-examination. Cross-examination isn't simply a barrister having an argument with somebody. The questions test the evidence. They expose weaknesses. And in this case, they also tested Dad's insight and whether it had changed.
You sent Mum more than 40 messages in one evening. Why?
Because I needed an answer about Lily.
And when the first 40 didn't produce an answer, what made you think message 41 would bring peace and clarity?
I accept now that it was too much.
The judge found that you blocked the doorway. What do you think Mum experienced?
I didn't touch her.
That wasn't the question.
She probably felt that she couldn't leave.
When you asked Lily who had been at Mum's house, whose needs were you meeting?
Mine.
And what would you do differently now?
I'd keep communication to what Lily actually needs. I wouldn't ask Lily anything about Mum. I'd use the parenting app. And if Mum didn't answer straight away, I'd leave it.
Dad still disputed parts of Mum's account, but he began to recognise that his intention wasn't the only issue. The effect of his behaviour mattered. Mum had felt controlled. Lily had felt responsible for adult information. Dad's answer was certainly not perfect. There'd been no miraculous personality transplant in the court waiting room, but there was movement. The court now had to decide whether that movement was enough to justify a pathway beyond supervision.
Do you accept that Dad's insight remains incomplete?
Yes.
Then why recommend any pathway beyond supervision?
Because I'm not recommending automatic progression. I'm recommending that Lily's relationship with her father is tested safely. Any change would depend on sustained, safe contact, strict boundaries, suitable work intervention, and improved insight. The case would return to court before anything progressed.
So your recommendation isn't simply that the court should trust him?
No, it's that the court should assess whether change is demonstrated rather than assume either that it will happen or that it never can.
Your final decision. You've now heard the findings, Lily's presentation, Dad's evidence, and Cafcass's recommendations. What would you order? Option A, professionally supervised contact only with no pathway beyond it. Option B, professionally supervised contact with a possible pathway towards supported and then unsupervised contact, but only after further evidence and another court decision. Option C, indirect contact only until Dad completes suitable domestic abuse work. Option D, no contact because the findings make a safe relationship impossible. Put your final answer in the comments, A, B, C or D, and tell me whether your answer changed after the fact-finding hearing and the cross-examination. Put what you put first and put what you put second. I'd be interested to see. The judgment. The judge chose option B. Professionally supervised contact would begin. There would be no face-to-face handovers between parents. Necessary communication would take place through a parenting app. Dad wasn't to question Lily about Mum. He wasn't to use Lily to carry messages, and he wasn't to seek private information about Mum's life. Dad would be assessed for suitable domestic abuse intervention or awareness work. The case would return to court after 6 months. Before anything progressed, the judge would consider the contact centre records, Cafcass's updated assessment, Dad's engagement with the work, whether he'd respected the boundaries, his level of insight, and Lily's emotional presentation. There would be no automatic move to supported or unsupervised contact. Dad had been given a pathway, but he hadn't been given a promise. Let's consider why the court decided that. The judge made clear that the findings were serious. Dad's behaviour had affected Mum's emotional safety. It had also placed Lily in a role that no 5-year-old should have done. No physical violence had been proved, but that didn't make the behaviour harmless. Lily's love for Dad didn't cancel the findings either. The court had to consider Lily's welfare as its paramount concern. It concluded that the relationship might still be preserved safely, but Dad had to prove that through his conduct. Supervision protected Lily while the relationship restarted. The parenting app and the separate arrangements protected Mum from direct pressure. The intervention work gave Dad an opportunity to develop insight, and the review hearing meant the court would decide whether anything progressed. The burden of demonstrating change now rested with Dad. Not Mum, not Lily, Dad. Did you agree with the judge? And what were your 2 votes? For example, first vote D, final vote B. Put both in the comments. I'm interested in whether hearing the findings and the cross-examination changed your view. Like the video if you found this fictionalised scenario useful. Please subscribe to the Family Court You Be the Judge and turn on notifications, because each episode asks you to make the decision before the court reveals its own. Now you be the judge. A grandmother and grandfather had been part of their 8-year-old granddaughter's life since she was born. School pickups, weekends, birthdays, emergency childcare. The full grandparent package. Unpaid taxi service, snack provider and emergency call centre. But then the adults fell out. Overnight, the grandparents were told they couldn't see their granddaughter again. She kept asking where they'd gone. The grandparents wanted to apply to court, but grandparents don't automatically stand in the same legal position as parents. So, should the court allow them to make the application? And even if it does, should it order contact against parents' wishes? That's episode 14, The Grandparents Who Wanted Contact. Subscribe, and next time, you be the judge.